Hey everybody, welcome back to another Broken Gamers tutorial. It's been a couple of weeks, hopefully this is a new one for you. I'm going to talk about some general tips, but not really the sort of normal tips that that I've seen around anyway. Some things that you would probably learn in the game, but takes a bit of time sometimes to learn it and sort of make a few mistakes and understand it, and they're just things that I kind of wish I knew a little bit more up front and develop my game a little bit more quickly and a little bit more sensibly, really. But before I go into it, please click the like button and the subscribe button if you like what I'm doing at all, and that really is going to help me. I'm still super new at this. Few new subscribers, which is really exciting, and hopefully we'll see a few more. So today it is fairly novice and intermediate, and I am going to put some timestamps in this so that you can fast forward bits that you're kind of getting a little bit bored of, or it inside out. But I would say that, like a lot of things, you will know a lot of it, but if you can pick up just one or two little things, then that's probably still going to do you a whole world of good. But obviously if you are a very experienced player, then you will know a lot of this, and that's totally understandable, and you would probably skip this. I am hoping to get a more intermediate to advanced tips guide out in the next week or two, but it will have a bit more gameplay in it than just talking about things and how to set things up. So I'm just trying to get a bit more footage, gameplay footage, so that I can show some proper examples on those. Okay, so gonna kick off with setup, so not gameplay stuff, things that we actually do to get ready to play the game. We're gonna kick off with balls, talk about their stats, talk about how you can manage your inventory of balls, and also selection, as in in the game, how to select them, but really just make sure you use your balls really wisely and cleverly, okay? Because the amount of times we see things being used badly is incredible. Clubs themselves, so many things you could talk about here, but we're going to look at the bag setup. We're going to look at using resources like Notebook that has a club ranker, so you can make sure you're developing the right clubs, spending your coins on the right clubs, and selecting the right clubs for tour play and tournament play, and also even opening chests. You're making sure that you have the right chests in the right slots. You're not constantly playing tour 6, tour 8, and you're stuck with tour 1 chests being opened, that sort of thing. Okay, silly little things, but the amount of times I've done it, loads. And we're going to go into gameplay a little bit more, talk about just all the little aspects you can do to make your average percentage win rate higher. Okay, I'm not going to necessarily make you win every single game, but if you do things well and regularly well, you're going to win a lot more than other people. Okay, and that's at the end of the day what it's all about. Okay, so I won't go through each of these now because we're going to go into it in more detail. So I'm going to come out of this, going to go into my iPad that you can see up there, and we're going to start talking a little bit more about balls. Okay, so I'm not going to go really all the way back to complete basics, but you all know by now that you have 8 free-to-play balls. I'm sure you do. The top 8 on here, and just taking the basic ball and the Marlin ball out of the equation to start with, because they just don't really have any stats. And Marlin is okay to use sometimes, but basically you've got the Navigator and the Quasar ball, which are fairly cheap to buy in terms of gems. What you earn in gems during a game, you can definitely buy Navigators and Quasars with, and you shouldn't be putting any of your own actual money into the game to get those. Similar with the Titan and Katana. They're a bit more expensive, and as long as you don't use them all the time and you use them when appropriate, you can probably, again, not have to spend physical money on those. And then you've got two fairly premium balls for free-to-play balls, or ones that you don't definitely have to pay money for. A Kingmaker and a Berserker, and they're very expensive in terms of gems, so you're typically going to have to earn those through finishing tournaments and the golden shot. But then again, still very easy to come by, especially when you start progressing in the game, like I'm sure you will. But you need to use them wisely and generally saved for tournament play rather than tour play. So if we go into one of them and have a look at the stats, again, you know this, we have the three main stats: the power, the side spin, and the wind resistance. Okay, and you all know what they mean. The two other attributes that the ball can have, first of all, is if you click on the power icon there, you can see it opens it up. And a really important stat that you should know about is at the bottom there it says, and +2 overpower needle stability. Now as you start to play more and more in this game, you will inevitably be using overpower more and more, and you will get more comfortable with it as well, even if you're not at full OP. So the ball stability becomes much more important. Okay, so it says +2 there. It's rated from 0 to +3, so 4 levels: 0, 1, 2 and 3. Okay, so that's a really important one, and 3 being the best. So when you pull back and your needle starts to shake vigorously, then it will shake a lot less vigorously on a +3 ball, and so on. Okay, and then the other thing that's more recent is, and you can see here, is you have topspin boosts and also backspin boosts to some of the balls. So that's a fifth stat, or fifth and sixth if you count them as topspin and backspin. Okay, I won't talk about that too much more now, because I'll talk about it a little bit more in a bit. So out of your 8 free-to-play balls, you have a really good selection of balls that you can use, and I'm not going to talk too much more about them now. I'm going to go into the pay balls, because that's the ones that you're going to be spending your wise money on, and you really don't want to be throwing it away on useless balls, and I have definitely done that too. So if you are going to spend a bit of money on balls, then keep listening. if you're completely free to play, then you probably don't need to hear the rest of this. But things start to get a little bit complicated. So for me, as you can see, I haven't got a huge amount compared to some people, but I've definitely got enough of balls here for me to get completely confused if I'm in a game and thinking, oh, it's this hole, I could really do with a power 5 ball, and I go into this menu and I'm like, oh, damn, which one was it I bought? My memory is pretty shocking for facts. Don't take me to a pub for a pub quiz. Trivia and that sort of stuff, no idea whatsoever. So I have a little spreadsheet that I have. So, okay, if I'm not playing too seriously, then I won't have any of this. But typically my setup at my table here would be my iPad with the game on, my iPhone with the Notebook app, or Clash Caddy if that's what you have, but I have Notebook. And then in front of me I have my computer for resources, just quick access information on balls and holes and stuff. And I've got a little clip here of my spreadsheet for my balls. Sounds a bit wrong, doesn't it? The left is the name of the ball. Okay, so you can see on my app here, I've got all these different balls, and I class them, first of all, power, side spin and wind resistance, the first 3 main stats, and then you can see in the yellow I've got top spin and backspin, and then I've got my stock quantity and then the overpower rating at the end. And then I group them in 5, I've got it white and grey, so the first white batch are all power 1s and then power 2s and so forth as we go down. it's just for me, the first thing I do when I go to a hole is I work out whether I want a power ball or a, or not a power ball. So that's the easiest way for me to initially filter them. So really, you can categorize the balls that you buy into very few amount of requirements, and if you do that, you'll end up not buying way too many balls. And now I only buy a handful of different types of balls, and this list here would be much less, but I've acquired some that are rubbish, and I just haven't used them up. So first things first is Power 1 balls, and to a degree the Power 2 balls, are basically for par 3s only, really. Okay, you want a low powered ball because a higher powered ball doesn't allow you to come back in your range of the club so much. So if you take a Power 5 ball to a par 3, you might actually end up not being able to pull back, especially if you've got a tailwind on the club enough, because your power ball can only go far and a par 3 is only short. So you typically use a Power 1 and sometimes a Power 2 ball for a par 3, okay? And then in any situation on a par 3, because you're never going to be trying to boost it for miles, you always want a wind reduction ball as much as possible. Okay, wind reduction 4, but really preferably wind reduction 5. So looking at my spreadsheet up there, and I've highlighted it in red, I've got a Highlands ball, Power 1, side 5, wind 3. Absolute trash. Like, why did I buy that? Absolutely no idea. I'm hoping that sometimes you get balls with a season ball. I'm hoping I bought that because I liked the season ball and that just happened to be the other ball. Because, okay, it might be better than taking a Quasar down, but I'm paying for this, actual money. And it's just, doesn't do anything more, much more than a Quasar does, or a Navigator, for example. Really isn't any good. So if you're going to invest in a par 3 ball, then basically you're looking for a Power 1, Power 2 ball with maximum 5 wind reduction. Okay, that's super important. You don't really ever need to worry about topspin. Occasionally backspin might be quite good on a couple of holes, and then OP again you don't really need to worry about, because you're not going to be going into overpower on any par 3s unless you're in some very weird situation. Okay, so if that was me, I would have all of those balls that could cashew, and none of the others. The one thing you can do is for some par 4s, those Power 2 Wind 5 balls are quite handy. The Frozen ball is really quite good. It's got max wind reduction, it's got good side spin, and because it's a par 4, I'm probably not going to be smashing it too far, and trying to be quite precise. So the Frozen ball is quite nice, but again, I don't really use them too often. So that's your main class of ball, is your par 3 ball. Then you've got your middle of the range balls, which are sort of like the Kingmakers, and you're going to be using those quite a lot in tournament play, because especially if you follow guides, they tend to use Kingmakers all the time, and I don't often have the stock of Kingmakers. So it's just one of those things where sometimes you might want to buy a middle of the range ball, or if you are going to use some balls in tour play, because you're struggling a bit, or you've just entered a new tour and you're new to it, so you feel that you need a little bit of a boost. I've definitely felt that when coming into new tours, not knowing the tour, and these guys have got better clubs, and you think, well, I'm just going to use a good all-round ball. So that would be those Power 3 balls. The Ruby is a good example there, where it's almost identical to a Kingmaker. But then you also have topspin come into this category. So the Virtuoso ball that you see there is absolutely great ball. Sorry, just going to pause this for 1 second. Right, okay, back. So yeah, the Virtuoso ball, a really good, average stats of power 3, side 2, wind 3. But for all of those holes, particularly par 4 holes where you have an island to hop onto and then hop over to the next one, or a bunker or something like that, where you can't just boost it because you'll head into the water or you'll head into the bunker, but you've got to place that landing. But then as soon as it hops onto the final island or final fairway, you need that ball to go as far as it can. That topspin boost of 4 is absolutely brilliant. It's one of the best balls in the game, especially for a power 3 ball, and I use it lots, and it's definitely one I wish I had more of, or when the similar ball comes out, I'll definitely be looking at that. Okay, so then we come into the power balls. So the power 4 and power 5, both excellent categories, and one that does tend to be bought most often along with the power 1 wind 5 balls. And there's not too much difference between them. If you're going with a tour ball, then definitely go with the power 4, because you can get stuck on a par 3 with a power 5, as I mentioned earlier. If you're looking at a pure par 5 ball, then you're going to be looking at power 5. Okay, and you have 2 main balls here. Okay, so if you look at my cyber ball, then that's a brilliant ball when you've got a tailwind. Okay, so it's got maximum power, it's got good side spin, and there's no blocking that tailwind. You've got it max, and because you're really boosting, that OP rating of 3 is absolutely fantastic. So a really good ball. Again, I wish I had a few more of those, but you don't often use them, so that ball is lasting me for quite a while. And then at the opposite end of the scale, one of the fairly new balls, the Nam Hay ball, is power 5, but has a good 4 wind reduction and a good 2 OP. So you've got that headwind and it blocks a lot of it and still powers on through with good OP rating. The Megalodon ball, everybody loved when that came out, but obviously you're going to be smashing it, and it's got an OP of 0. So as soon as Nam Hay came out, then that was really good. And the Bubba ball too, that I haven't been playing this game that long, and for me that ball, when that came out, was a really versatile par 5 ball. Having the 2 side spin and 3 wind resistance. Obviously the Nam Hay trumps it now massively. But the Shining ball, again, I've highlighted it in red because it is, again, just in no man's land. It's not a wind resistance ball with 2, does a little bit, but not a lot, and it's also going to block a lot of tailwind if you have a tailwind. So again, I can't remember the last time I used that ball. Definitely better than nothing, 100%. But it's, again, if you're investing money, you just pick your purchases wisely. In the Power 4 category, and I do love the Power 4 balls, I'm just going to pick out 2 balls really. The Golden Ox, which I put up there in my stock with Virtuoso as being one of the 2 best balls that I have. Great power, great wind resistance, still got a good bit of side spin, and OP3. So sensational ball, absolutely brilliant. And then at the opposite end of the scale, the Spartan ball, again highlighted in red, just no flexibility. It's got good power and good wind resistance, but just, I hate being stuck, especially in tour play, and you get to the shootout, it's just not going to be any good whatsoever. So I will use that in tournaments only when I know that I can get away with 0 side spin. I like side spin, and I hate being pushed into a corner where I'm stuck and can only use curl, which you do get used to curl, but at the end of the day, it's invisible what you're doing from a ball guide point of view. Okay, so the only thing other thing I'd sort of say is, paid balls are generally for tournaments, as in my eyes. But there are circumstances in tour play where you might use one, but please just use them sensibly. You know, the amount of times I've seen a power 1 win 5 ball on a par 5 course, and I'm guessing that they're using that ball hoping just to get to the shootout and then it will become relevant. It's just embarrassing though, to a degree, really, if you know. I know it's not, I shouldn't say embarrassing, that's not fair, but I just use them wisely. You know, use them on courses where you're being challenged by the wind, or maybe your opponent is really good. And I'll talk about opponents a little bit later, but if your opponent is miles better than you and he can just hit a fairway you can't hit with a Quasar or a Katana, so you might bring out a Namhe ball to at least stand a chance of competing with him. And you know, I've done that occasionally. And you know, it's just one of those things where, especially if you're playing a higher tour and you know, you just don't want to be at a massive disadvantage. But what I would say is just don't bring out power 4 and 5 balls like all the time and end up in shootouts most of the time with a ball that is really going to be not that great for you. Okay? And then when it comes to free to play balls on tour play, then generally, this is a real high level stab, but you know, from tours sort of 4 through to 7, you know, the Quasar and Navigator ball should be fine when you're an experienced enough player at those tours. So when you go into those tours, you might want to use some Katanas and Titans to get used to the tour, and then as you progress through that tour and get more experience, you drop down to the Quasar and Navigator. And then when you move up to sort of tour 8 and 9, 10, then you know, Katanas and Titans will become a fairly regular ball for you. Just make sure you drop down to the Quasar and Navigator when you can, and you know those holes will allow you to, but the winds do get that much higher, so you will be looking for the relief of, you know, the Katana and Titan with a little bit more wind resistance, still giving you that power. Okay. Right, so that's enough, I think, on balls. Hopefully you've gained a little bit from that, and we're going to move on now to clubs. Right, so setting up your bags is really important. So first things first, I'm sure you know it, but you get more bags to choose from. Up here you can see I've got the bag 2, bag 3, right at the top you've got the different coloured bags, and you get more of those when you join a clan, so that, you know, and then the higher level or higher division that your clan is in, the more bags that you get. So I would definitely look at joining, and all clans are different. Some are just, you know, very chilled, it doesn't matter if you say a word or don't say a word. And just find the right one for you. It won't take too long, I'm sure. But setting these bags up is pretty important for tour play. Not so much for tournament play, because you can go in and change it each time. But even then, it's a bit of a ball ache to you know, constantly have to go in and keep changing each one. So I tend to set my 5 bags up with predominantly the driver and the wood club in mind. They're the clubs that you drive off with and hit, you know, long balls with, and you need to either be accurate or get distance. The other clubs will change, but will only really change because you've leveled up a club and it's become slightly better than the other one, or whatever it is. Typically you will use, for example, the Grizzly and the Thorn as your main club across all bags. Okay, so for the purpose of this, and there are some small instances in tours where you might think, oh, I really wish I had this club instead of that one. There's a particular one on Tour 10 where there's a par 4 and you can drive fairly close to the green and it'll bring you in wedge distance, and I typically play with the Endbringer. There's a particular hole where the Endbringer is often just a little bit out, using the method that I use for the end bringer, and there's a really good sticky funnel for the rapier club. And I just often there like wish I had the rapier club to do that shot. But that's one hole out of lots of holes. So sorry, I've got some trash on here from doing some challenges, I'm sure. Okay, so first of all, I've got a power club. So in this instance, the Apocalypse. It's also got good topspin at this level. And then bag 2, I've got the Extra Mile. And bag 3, I've got the Rock, which is much more accurate. I've got the Quarterback, which is extremely accurate, but also you can use it on some par 3s from tees that are further away. And then I've got the Apocalypse again. So I've been changing things around a little bit, and this is actually not really optimal, so I should probably change it a little bit. But basically, what you're going to want to do is have a power club like the Extra Mile or APOC, and then a safe club like the Rock or the Quarterback. Okay, so they're your first 2 bags, and then with both of those clubs, and this is for tour play, with both of those clubs you have a wood that is very accurate and good, like the Sniper, and you also have one that is maybe more distance on it, like maybe the Guardian or the Horizon, or it depends a little bit on what you've unlocked. I think the Hammerhead as well. Again, depends on how early you lock them, but they're all good distance balls, but they don't really have great ball guides earlier on. So your first 4 bags really should be a power driver with an accurate wood, the same power driver with a distance wood. And then your next 2 bags will be an accurate driver with accurate wood, and then an accurate driver with a power wood. And then the 5th bag will typically be a topspin based club, and that's almost always the big topper for a lot of us until we get up to high levels where other clubs have really good topspin as well. And then I would typically pair that with an accurate wood. Okay, and you'll switch that around, and it does depend tour on tour. There are really a lot of tours where I think the power wood comes into play a lot more than others, but even then, again, depending on the tour, even then, that could easily set you up for disaster in a shootout. The amount of times I've gone through, to a shootout with the Horizon and gone, right, there's not really much point in playing this. And, it's just a little bit about, do you think, and you can look at your opponent as well, do you think you can get through the hole using a Sniper so that you can get to the shootout and still win? Okay, we'll talk about that again a little bit more later. But they're your 5 bags, okay? And then the other thing is your clubs. When you first start developing your clubs, you pretty much try and, every time you get a chance to level something up, you do it. Well, to start with, it's, you might not have that many coins, and you've got to be a little bit more sensible. And some clubs are a lot more expensive to upgrade than others. So there's a few things you can do. First of all, learn a little bit about the clubs. And one of the best ways to do that is to try and find out which clubs are in the medium and longer term are actually going to be the clubs that you'll end up using. Okay, and there's lots of different places you can find this information, but one that I tend to use is the Notebook, Golf Clash Notebook app again, and they've got a golf club ranker app. Okay, I'll just bring it up now. Okay, so this is just on my phone, so I'm sorry you don't get a great view of this, but you know, I'm not really doing this, but you know, for demonstration purposes only. But you can see here we're on drivers at the moment. Okay, so you can pick drivers, woods, whatever club you want. Okay, and you can see there are different levels down the left hand side. So already I know that the Apocalypse and Thor's Hammer are the two best drivers in the game, because look at them, they're all the way up there. But they're really tough clubs to get, you know, so that's not going to be the club you have to start with. But if I scroll down to the bottom, where we're on our level 1s and 2s and 3s, so you can see that you've got the rocket down there and the quarterback and the extra mile coming in, but you know, but you can see that you're already up to level 6 of the rocket, which is pretty much the same as an extra mile level 2. So basically, okay, you're going to need to upgrade it if you haven't unlocked the extra mile for a little bit, but you know, there's no point investing in that ball long term, because it's just, you know, it's going to be rubbish pretty soon. Okay, so you can use this app, and across the top you've got all your settings, your power, your accuracy, your top spin, your backspin, your curl, and your ball guide. And it can also just show you what's coming in the next upgrade. So, you know, if you know you've got an extra mile and you're two cards off upgrading it, and you know it comes up in a shop and you think, oh, you know, it's not that many gems to upgrade, you know, get 2 cards of extra mile, and then you spend, you know, quite precious gems in the game, and then you find that you don't get any power boost or any topspin boost, and all you've got is some extra backspin and, you know, a little bit of, I don't know, curl or something, and you might be like, oh, that was a complete waste of time. So you can use this app to work out how to spend your gems, you know, and, you know, really work on getting the right clubs as soon as you can. Okay, and that's the same across all of them. When it comes to chests, it is you know, really important that if you're going to spend a few gems opening some of them, then, you know, don't do it when you've got 2 chests and 2 empty slots. Okay, wait till you've got 4 full chests in there and you're about to play a game, and you would lose a chest if you won it because there's no slot for it to go in. That's when you open up a chest. Okay, I know you're dead keen to get more cards as soon as you can, but it's just a complete waste and just not worth its time. All right, and then the other thing is, you know, we all go down to lower tours sometimes to practice, to complete challenges, to do that sort of thing. But if you drop down to level 1 to complete a challenge, and then you suddenly you've taken up one of your 4 slots with a level 1 chest, it's like, oh God, what have I just done? Okay, so, you know, if you don't want level 1 chests because they're pretty trash, then, you know, only do those challenges when you've got your 4 slots full. Okay, or you've got no slots full and you're going to bed, and it'll be open in the morning anyway. All right. The other thing is, different levels get you different level chests or tour chests give you access to different clubs. Okay, and again, you can Google this, but for example, Extra Mile Club is available in Tours 2, and you might want the extra mile, but you probably have opened up quite a lot of clubs. But extra level 2 tour chests will only give you 4 or 5 clubs, so you're much more likely to get the extra mile. However, the flip side is you don't get as many club cards in that chest for the amount of time you're spending to open it, or use a few gems to open it. But, you know, again, if you're looking to get the sniper, I think you have to be at least level 6. So, you know, don't think that because you've unlocked it, you're going to get cards for that club in level 3 tour, in Tour 3 or Tour 4 chests. Ain't going to happen. Okay, and when you open it, it tells you, well, when it's not opened, it shows you what tour you need to be on to get that club. So just remember that, or Google it. Okay, I think that's pretty much most of it for club selection. And you'll get to know lots of them, over the course of time. The only thing I would also say is that it really is advantageous to keep practicing with the same club. It does get harder when you keep leveling up and stats change, and you're kind of used to this, and then suddenly you've got more ball guide, and then you're suddenly overrunning the hole and stuff like that. But you will get used to it, and after a short amount of time, you'll be longing for it to level up a club. It doesn't happen very often after a while. Like, it really does go long periods of time without leveling up. So at the beginning, just try and get used to it and get familiar with a set of clubs rather than constantly chopping and changing. Okay, look at that club ranker to work out which clubs you're going to be using long term. Okay, quick pause. Right. Okay, so the final sort of section we're going to talk about is just more gameplay stuff, really, and strategic stuff. And some of it is, again, pretty simple, but it's it's really, really important. So I'll just kick straight into them, really. So safety first, particularly when you're new to a tour. The urge to try and hit it and get that extra distance, or reach that final island, or curve over to a different fairway or different island, or whatever it is, especially when your opponents are doing it, that urge is just always there. And it is for me, and it still is for me, because you want to be, the best. You want to be doing the best shots. You don't want to be someone just tucking it in, laying up and so forth. But I promise you, if you're looking for an overall higher win percentage and to get more trophies in the tour, to open up the next tour or whatever it is, then that is, playing safe is super important. And the more you get to know each tour and each hole, you can just take that safety on a little bit each time. And you may be frustrated by this to start with. You think, I should have gone for it because, they did, and you didn't win that particular hole. But you will still learn from them, learn from the shots they do, and, use that. I'll talk about it now. It's the third point on here, but using your opponent is super important in the game. Lots of people say focus on your game, don't focus on your opponent. And that is true to the degree that you open up their stats, and they've played 10,000 games and you've only played 1,000. Their win percentage is 60%, your win percentage is 50%, and that's not what I'm talking about. They might have a higher level club than you, they might be playing with better balls than you. That's not what I'm talking about either. What I'm talking about is watching the game that they play, because if you're new to a tour, the chances are they've been playing that tour for a long time, and they will know the shots to play. So try and put yourself in their position, and when they're laying up their shots, setting up their ball guides, using curl, using overpower, all those different types of things, just try and envisage what they're doing, why they're doing it, and seeing if the shot that they take comes off as you expected. You are basically then doubling your education. Okay, because not only are you not learning from your shot if you do a bad shot, you're learning a good shot from them. And if they do a bad shot, you could be like, I don't know, I wouldn't be putting that much top spin on that, or I wouldn't be putting that much OP on that. That looks dangerous. And they go into the rough, and you're like, haha, that's cool. You use it, and you double everything that you're doing, and it just will take your game on so much. And the same comes to if you do something that you don't understand in your shot, then go back to the replay and try and understand it. And if you still don't understand it, post it on a forum and get people to help you out, or post it on your clan's Facebook page if they have one, and get some feedback from them, because learning from those experiences is really important, especially on the shootout holes. Also with your opponent, use them as well. If they go first and they hit a super shot that's going to give them a super easy second shot, then you're going to have to probably follow their move. People say play your game, but if you lay up and it's going to give you a tough short iron, or even a long iron to the hole, when you don't know the elevations and the winds that well, then you might as well at least have a go and try and learn from that as well. Also, if they go into the rough, play safe, and just use your opponent. If they have, really good clubs and things like that, then maybe you'll also take that time, as I said earlier, to bring out a ball to try and level the playing field a little bit. So I never absolutely ignore my opponents, but I do ignore, the fact that they might be more experienced than me or have better clubs than me. I just play with it and just try and learn from it. That's the most important thing. Note taking is really important, and I'm not talking about the shootout holes. That's a given. Okay, you need to have your notes. You need to have your guides if you use guides for the shootout holes. I'm not going to cover that in this, but there may be on a tour 3 courses, which is a total of 6, 12, 18 different par 4 and 5 holes. Okay, 6 on each course. And there was probably about a third of those that are very technical, require curl, require accurate landing points, have tough elevations, and you don't need to make notes for all the holes, but you need to make notes for those holes. Okay, and the different winds will play differently. Okay, if you have, a big headwind or a big side wind, you might want to increase your offset or put a bit more elevation on your app so that you factor in a little bit more wind effect. Okay, and make notes. What went well in that wind for you? And just do little arrows and things on your. I use OneNote, Microsoft OneNote, and I even take screen grab photos, screenshots, and put them up there. And I know on this hole there's 2 horrible holes on the Nordic fjords, one par 4 and one par 5, where you have to hop over a little bunker on a thin island. And depending on the wind direction, you've got to sometimes do a double bounce to then have your third bounce going over this bunker. It's an absolute, everyone hates it. But I have my notes on those 2 holes now. I never did it before. I just used to make simple little notes like, I can, if the tailwind is 10, I can make the far island if I boost. But no, now I've got actual notes that say, headwind, I'm going to be doing 10% max elevation, 6 top spin, and half a ball curl to the left. Okay? And that's the type of notes that you need to be taking, because they are the ones that won't go to a shootout all the time. And you need to be the one winning those holes, not them. Okay. Note taking. Practice perfect. And this is something I do badly. Okay, so often when you're playing quickly, you're playing on lower tours, or you're comfortable with a tour, you're doing challenges or whatever it is, and whether it's teeing off using your driver and you've got a big wide fairway, so it doesn't matter if you hit a great left or a great right, or you're quite near to the hole and doing a putt and you know that a great will easily get you in, whatever. I used to always just do those shots quickly. And now I've developed some terrible habits of like the arrow won't even go back through the needle won't even go back through the bullseye once. I just automatically take my finger off. And, I don't even think, I wasn't even concentrating there. And I hit a great left or a great right. And I just get into these horrible habits. So just practice. You don't have to let the needle spin loads of times. Just practice doing the same thing that you'll do all the time, and concentrate. Okay, so and then you don't get into the bad habits that I have. Okay, I really find myself doing it all the time. So practice perfect on all different shot types all the time, and you won't get used to hitting great. Don't practice hitting great by not concentrating. And then concentration itself is really important. And this is really when you're playing holes that you're not comfortable with, high-level tours, you're in a new tour. The difference for me, I play Tour 10 a lot. The difference in me sitting down with, a cup of coffee, chilling out and just playing your game or here or there, I end up losing. And I get on these really bad losing streaks sometimes, like I think we all do. And then I think, then I have to concentrate to get back on, and I really think about the hole. I really think about setting my driver shot up so I know that the wood's going to be an easier one. I make sure I hit perfect all the time. I do the elevation the way I want it to. I look exactly where I think I am between min and max. All those things, I think about them much more. And it's amazing. Suddenly I'm on a 7 win streak on Tour 10. That when you're in those tougher conditions, concentration is super important. If you want to play some fun games, lower the tour and just have some fun. Or go to a second account if you have another account and play your baby account for a bit. But when you're challenging and you want to do well, you can't mess around. And then we talked about playing safe earlier on, but there are definitely times when you should take some risks. It is important because, trying to get the edge of your opponent is what it's all about, not always just going to the shootout hole. So when you start to learn the tours well, you start to know when you can take a few more risks, or you're going first, you open up, maybe have a look at their stats, and, they're a 30 to 40% win rate, and they no win streak and all that sort of stuff. I'm not saying that you should take that as a given, but sometimes I use that and I think, well, I'm gonna have a go at this guy. Just feel a little bit more confident and just go for it. So there's definitely times to take risks, but not when you're learning a tour. Okay? And definitely not when you're on a losing streak, because that's when you tend to start to take a few more risks. And it just gets even worse, I'm afraid. In fact, I'll skip to when to stop, because lots of people tell me to stop when I'm losing, and you kind of think, just try and win a couple back so that I get my trophies back up or my funds back up, and then honestly you're in the wrong mindset. And I have this strong belief with the game that it goes through phases of being kinder and not kinder to you. I don't think it does it like some people do, where they actually cheat. But I definitely think it gives me holes that it knows I'm not so good at when I'm on a losing streak. And I do sometimes find it harder to hit perfect sometimes than others. I don't think that'll be different for other people. I don't think it's that biased, but I've definitely heard streamers who've been playing the game for much longer than I have say that, I know that was a perfect ball. Okay, so it'll be the same for your opponent, I'm sure too, but I'm not trying to say anything's, bad, but sometimes things aren't going your way, and that's when it's time to stop. And then you open it up, and they might put you on a different circulation of holes, because I don't know if you've noticed it, but you do tend to get the similar holes. If you play for an hour, some holes will come up much more regularly than others, and then the next time you play, it'll be those other holes. So if they're playing the holes that you don't like, quit, wait a bit, or play your baby account, do something different, do some challenges, and then go back to your serious tour play, and hopefully it'll be a different set of holes, and you'll be in a different frame of mind as well. And then finally, practicing OP. The more you get on in this game, the more you'll need to use OP, overpower. And I promise you, it gets easier. Overpower and also, shooting from the rough and shooting from the sand. I'm not saying practice going into it, but you can use your apps. Notebook has a needle simulator. But all I'm saying is the more you practice it and the more you use it, the better it gets. So if you go into your baby account, or you go into a lower level tour just to chill out for a bit or whatever, use your OP there as much as you can, and you'll get used to that speed. And I'm not great from the rough, but I will definitely hit perfect 50 to 60% of the time now. Whereas when I first started, first until I was at least up to tour 7 or something like that, I wouldn't expect to hit perfect, and if I did, it'd be lucky. But practicing it, I promise you, for the rough and the sand as well, especially the rough, and using that confidence. And you can Google it. I think Ben Kennedy, BK, has a tutorial on, like doing a metronomic type of sound in your head, or using something to try and, almost like music, just try and hit that perfect on those tougher shots. And whatever works for you, really, and then just stick to using that. Okay, well, that's it. That's kind of all I've done. Again, hopefully to try and get a slightly more advanced tutorial out in the next few weeks. And hopefully look forward to that. Please do hit the subscribe button. Please hit the like button if you've gained anything from this at all. Catch up with you again soon. Cheers, guys. Happy golfing.